Today we are going to learn Economics Chapter 1, that is Indian Economy on the Eve of Independence. In this chapter we are going to learn economic past of India during the British period and during colonial rule and also after independence, that is from 1947 to 1990. Let me give you introduction first. We all know very well that our independent economy before the colonial rule, that is British period, was very rich and agriculture was the main source of livelihood. Our Indian economy was well known for its handicraft industries in the field of cotton and silk textiles, metals and precious stoneworks, etc. Our Indian handicraft market was worldwide and very much popular, that is, market for handicraft industry was spread worldwide, and reason for this worldwide market was based on the reputation of fine quality of raw materials and high standard of craftsmanship, which means that the quality of our raw material which we were using for the production was of the finest and best quality, and our craftsmen or the laborers were of very high standard, and that is why they were very creative and artistic, and this handicraft industry became popular worldwide. If you observe, there was very much low level of economic development under the colonial rule. When I say economic development, it means that our country did not develop much in terms of production, trade, agriculture, infrastructure, etc. because colonial government, that is British government in India, were concerned with the protection and promotion of economic interest of their home country than the development of India, which means Britishers were more interested in developing their home country England, and for this they transformed our country into mere supplier of raw material and the consumer of finished products from Britain. Now please understand this concept carefully, as it is important to know as to how they did this. Colonial government used to purchase raw materials from Indian market at a very cheaper rate. So we used to export raw materials to Britain at a lower rate. Now with this raw material, they used to produce final goods in the factories of Britain and sell these final goods for consumption to India. So this way we used to consume which was made with our own country's raw material at a higher cost. And as Britishers never allowed our industry to grow and made us just the supplier of raw material, or say exporter of raw material. During the colonial government, they never made any attempt to estimate India's national income and per capita income. There were individual attempts to measure such income yielding conflicting and inconsistent result. Among these estimators, they were Dadabhai Naroji, William Digby, V.K.R.V. Rao and Mr. Desai, etc. Now, out of all of these estimators, Rao's estimate was considered to be very significant because most studies did not find the country's growth of aggregates real output during the first half of 20th century. Now, Indian economy during the British rule, or say colonial rule, remains stagnant. Let's understand what is stagnant economy. Stagnant economy means that the growth of any economy is stopped. That is, there is no growth in terms of production. That is what we call it as GDP, gross domestic product, which means production of goods and services in the economy. So there was no growth in terms of production or GDP, no development in agricultural sector, industrial sector or foreign trade. Stagnant economy also faced increased poverty and unemployment. Now all these led our economy to become stagnant or no growth at all. Apart from this, one more reason was no social welfare or public expenditure for the welfare of the people of the country, which means colonial government never used to spend wealth for the development for the development of the Indian economy. The wealth which they earned from our economy was used for the development of their own country, that is Britain. Now, let's study how was the agriculture sector during the colonial rule. We all know that about 85% of the population lived in villages in India, and major source of livelihood and occupation was agriculture. Now, during this time, Indian agricultural sector faced stagnation mainly due to various land settlement which were introduced by colonial government, and one of them was zamindari system. Under this zamindari system, all the profit that was accruing out of agriculture went to zamindar instead of the cultivators. So cultivators were deprived of profit share and very minimum amount was given to them. These zamindars did nothing to develop and improve the condition of agriculture, and main interest of zamindar were to collect rent regardless of economic condition of the cultivators. This led to immense misery and social tension among the society. Now, if we observe, the reason for such an attitude of zamindar was faulty revenue settlement system as set up by the colonial rule. So what is this faulty revenue settlement? Under this revenue settlement system, the dates for depositing the specified sum of revenue were fixed, failing to which zamindar were to lose their rights, and thus this was one of the main reasons for stagnation of agricultural sector. The another reason for stagnation is low level of technology and negligible use of fertilizers, which means that our Indian economy was not technologically advanced, and we did not know much use of insecticides, pesticides or fertilizer. Even after commercialization of agriculture, it did not help farmers or cultivators to improve their economic condition because of production of cash crops instead of food crops for the benefit of British industry. When we say cash crops, it means production of cotton and jute instead of food crops. This was so because Britishers wanted us to produce such cash crops so that they can buy the raw materials from us and use it for the production of finished goods in their home country. So we used to export this raw material for the benefit of British industries. Now this led to fall in demand for goods locally. That is, our own country was deprived of such raw materials. Indian agriculture was also not much into the investment into flood control, drainage system, etc. because we were not technologically advanced. There was large section of tenants, small farmers and sharecroppers neither had the resources and technology nor they had the incentive to invest into agriculture. Now let's study how was the industrial sector during the colonial rule. During the colonial rule, there was no much growth into this sector as well. Our famous handicraft industry declined. The main motive of colonial government was twofold. Number one, to reduce India to mere exporter of raw materials, which I had already explained you earlier as to how they wanted us to be the exporter of raw materials to their home industry for benefit of their home country. And number two, to turn India into sprawling market for finished goods. Now these were the goods which were made with our own raw material, which was produced in Britain and sold it back to Indian market in the form of finished product at a higher rate. This shows that they made us mere supplier and did not allow our industry to grow except in the area of cotton and jute. Decline in handicraft industry created a massive unemployment, and Indian consumer were deprived of locally made goods. There was very low progress and very less development was confined only to cotton and jute industries in India. Now talking about a ray of hope. As I told you that our sector was very much confined only to two industries, that is cash crop industry. But there was a ray of hope when there was an introduction or incorporation of Tata and Iron and Steel Company in 1907. Other industries like sugar, cement, paper, they also came up after the Second World War. But again, no capital goods industry to help and promote industrialization in India. Contribution of Indian industry in GDP was very small due to limited area of operation. When I say limited area of operation, it means it was confined only to cotton and jute industries. Now this sector remained confined to this, plus there were also another few industries or sectors like railways, power generation, communication, ports, but the contribution of this sector was to develop the colonial government offices and not to benefit the Indian economy. So to conclude, we can say that there was low level of growth in agriculture sector during the colonial rule. There was decline in handicraft industry. We were just the exporter of raw material and consumer of finished products. There was low level of technology, no capital goods. As I said, capital goods means the production of machineries, tools or equipments, which we were lacking in, and that is why technologically we were very much backward. There was also low contribution in terms of production, that is GDP, and all these contributed to become our economy stagnant. Thank you very much.